Imagine a hedgehog running so fast that he can time travel. Yep, that's pretty much the whole premise of Sonic CD. The Sega CD or Mega CD is an accessory for the Genesis or Mega Drive. Unsurprisingly, it meant that the games were on a disc instead of a cartridge. Discs could store significantly more of a game and provide new graphical effects and high-quality audio. The only problem was, Sega weren't very good at supporting this accessory. They finally gave their main mascot a game, and even that didn't help their sales very much. Now, if you're looking for a huge leap in graphics, you won't find too much here. Sonic sprites are identical to those on the base Genesis. The new effects are more about the better rendering and rotations, particularly seen in the backgrounds of this game. The music hits very differently though. Are those real recorded instruments? You bet they are. There are even vocals with lyrics here on the title screen. They're compressed, but they're clear enough to make out. I like the Sonic Boom title track, although for some bizarre reason, the US soundtrack is almost completely different from everywhere else in the world. I'm not talking about translated lyrics, I mean they made all new compositions, seriously altering the vibe. I'll have more to say about this later on. For now, let's start playing the game. It begins in Palm Tree Panic, notably without the word zone attached to the end. They decided to go for alliteration in all of the zones in this game, with a few odd themes. Palm Tree Panic is definitely the most generic idea they came up with, and even that is arguably not a standard theme to choose. It's appropriately a beginner-friendly area with plenty of layers to the level and not many enemies. The robotic badnik enemies slowly drop towards the ground when defeated and plant a flower. Well, that's nice. In this game, Sonic is essentially trying to save the future, and these plants will surely help with that. But he has other more exciting ideas to save the future. New to these stages are signs reading past and future. When Sonic brushes past a sign, he can then time travel backward or forward when he maintains top speed for long enough. If he stops short, he might lose the ability to time travel until finding another sign. The future doesn't look bright, and that's what he's trying to fix. He has two options to turn a bad future into a good future. The first option requires visiting the past to find the robot generator in each level, placed there by Sonic's nemesis, Dr. Robotnik. These are well hidden, and I didn't find many of them. The other option is to rescue all 7 time stones so that Dr. Robotnik can't invade the past to ruin the future. 7 time stones, kind of like 7 Chaos Emeralds. That must mean they're in special stages. Uh-oh. Just like in Sonic 1, if you reach the end of a stage with at least 50 rings, you can play a special stage. I didn't like the special stages offered by the previous games, but they changed drastically with every game. These special stages are decent. The CD's power shines here, creating a pseudo 3D space to move around in. The goal is to take down the 6 UFOs within the time limit, and any time spent in the water surrounding the stage will cause the time to tick down aggressively fast. There are some quirks to the movement that make later stages difficult, but this was the best iteration of special stages by far, at least in 1993. It's much easier to access them in the first place, there's nothing unfair about them, and dare I say they're actually fun. You collect a time stone for beating a special stage, and collecting all 7 means that you've made a good future in every single zone. Hopefully this made a good future for special stages of later Sonic games. Before I collected all of the time stones, I saw the bad future at the end of each zone. The third and final level of a zone always takes place in the future, where Sonic fights Dr. Robotnik. He has all kinds of crazy new contraptions to fight with, and yet they're weaker than ever. It only takes 3 hits to defeat Robotnik most of the time. He has some wild ideas that deserve more screen time, although I can see why you don't need to land 8 hits on all of them. It's just underwhelming at 3 hits. In the first fight, you might bounce off the shields a few times, and it'll still be over in an instant. Pair that with the US music attempting to make him a scary villain, and it all feels off. The original soundtrack makes it seem like Robotnik is just having fun being a little evil, whereas the US took a more serious approach and tried to convey real danger. Next up was Collision Chaos. Sure, that's an accurate name for this zone. You can collide with a lot of things and cause chaos, such as springs at various angles and of course pinball flippers. However, before you can experience any of that, Sonic is introduced to Amy for the first time. It's love at first sight, at least for Amy. Unfortunately, it's one-sided, but then Metal Sonic creeps in and kidnaps Amy. The official story describes more than that, but it's nice to get a small amount of visual story in the middle of the game. It's a little silly and doesn't need to happen on top of the time stone plot. You're a good hedgehog though, so you'll save Amy as well as the rest of time, I guess. Who knew that both of those would involve climbing a pinball table to bonk into the Eggman? Onwards to Tidal Tempest, the obligatory water stage, this time free of drowning drowning music. You can still drown, so you don't want to get too far away from air bubbles. I have to ask though, where are the enemies? The earlier stages felt somewhat barren, but I brushed it off because it was the beginning of the game. At this point, I expected more challenges and I felt that the enemies were not utilized enough. Most of them kind of just exist and are few and far between, leaving the level layouts as the biggest challenge, if you can really call it that. Robotnik's fight at the end of the zone was the best part. It's all underwater and you have to take out the bubble shields around him, which will also refill your air. It's better than most of the fights in this game because it lasts longer and it's fun to weave in between the projectiles. Finding robot generators was proving challenging too. I finally found my first one in the passive Tidal Tempest's second stage. Speaking of the past, let's talk about the bizarre music choices in the US. The song for a zone changes between the present, past, bad future, and good future. They're variations of the same song, which is a nice touch. As mentioned, for whatever reason, the US release had a very different soundtrack, completely changing the vibe of almost every location. Except they didn't change the songs for the past. The present and future songs still flow together, but not the past, and it's a rather jarring experience when traveling back in time. I can't see this as a mistake, and I don't understand why it would be a deliberate decision either. If you're going to remake most songs, why not do all of them? It's definitely less chaotic than the original Japanese soundtrack, and the new compositions don't fit as well with Sonic in the first place. With all that said though, I don't think it's fair for this to affect my view of the game. It was a weird localization quirk that was worth mentioning. The fourth area is Quartz Quadrant. I don't have much to say about it. The theme has nothing to do with the level designs, it's just there to look pretty. I like the contrast between all the time periods as it's notably more natural in the past versus industrial in the present and future. And once again, there's a lack of enemies. It seems like that continues into Wacky Workbench, although the environment here is very hazardous. Wacky is a good word to describe these levels. The bouncy floor was bizarre, launching all the way to the ceiling, and the electricity was hard to see but served as a creative obstacle. This is a good example of environmental obstacles, and they didn't need as many enemies in these level designs. It's nice that these levels salvage it, even if I got tired of the aggressive bounciness. Stardust Speedway is sort of like a playground to showcase various outcomes for Sonic's speed abilities. The gimmick isn't obvious and it's a weird one. I liked it because it forces you to use more of the layers within the level and find ways in between them. After figuring that out, it was short and empty again. This is a good game, but it's as if they forgot one last part of the design. I did not care for the Metal Sonic chase at the end of Stardust Speedway either. It's like a race and you have to be strategic, except none of the strategies work. If you try to stay back, Eggman is there with a beam of death returning you to the start. If you try to go ahead, Metal Sonic hasn't taken out the obstacles yet, and when he's trying to catch up, he will. Reacting to the obstacles ahead is more or less impossible. Eventually, I was able to sneak ahead right at the end to close the gate, and the Metal Imposter face-planted and fell. I rescued Amy, but the game wasn't over. The final round is Metallic Madness, and the second stage is a nightmare in the original game, especially if you're stuck in the past. It's as if they sprinkled all their remaining ideas into this last area, and I honestly like it. There are several new things here and plenty of head-scratching moments. Time travel is almost essential to solve these levels, which was never the case before. The build-up was good, then there's one more fight with Robotnik, and the game is over. It's underwhelming and not worthy of being the final boss. I've criticized the easy difficulty to death at this point. It was interesting seeing the animated ending cutscene as Sonic runs to safety with Amy. Back when this was released, this was rarely seen in video games. The quality is quite low now, but they attempted to make a 3D feeling animation on a console that only displayed in 2D. That's worth a lot of credit. I had fun while I was playing, but by the end I felt like nothing was really happening due to the lack of enemies. It's a weird feeling. Extra enemies could have improved this game so much, and there were some annoyances as I discussed. However, there's a lot to be impressed with. The novelty of traveling between past, present, and future didn't wear off, since the differences are striking and your actions feel impactful. There's replay value thanks to the alternative ways of turning bad futures into good futures. Despite my ramblings, it's not bad. It's decent, or perhaps a little better than decent. Therefore, my final score for Sonic the Hedgehog CD will be 7.4 out of 10. This is an interesting game to look back on because Sega seems to hold it at the same level as the main trilogy on the Genesis. And I would agree, it's the same length and Sonic controls more or less the same. While it left me wanting more, it's worth playing if you're exploring classic Sonic games, and probably a good place to start since it won't give you too much trouble. It received a remake in 2011, adding Tails as a playable character, and also came back with a main trilogy in Sonic Origins in 2022 with Amy and Knuckles. Knuckles didn't even exist when the original was released. list. This will be my only detour to the Sega CD. As expected, the most popular game for the accessory, but not enough to give it a proper chance. The Speedy Blue Hedgehog also had a few games on other systems that I won't be covering. The 8-bit Sega Master System had its own versions of Sonic 1 and 2, and the bulky portable Game Gear had strange titles like Sonic Blast, Sonic Triple Trouble, and Tails Adventure. They're worth mentioning because they all provide different experiences, but these systems haven't aged well. Critics of 1993 reacted positively, although there's one surprising anomaly. The Japanese magazine Beep Mega Drive covered Sega exclusively and previously rated Sonic very highly. Sonic CD, however, only reached an average of 7.25 out of 10. Famitsu had also begun covering games outside of Nintendo's consoles, and their average score was 8 out of 10, which was better than Sonic 2. And now, a group of reviews that I can actually read from Electronic Gaming Monthly. With an average score of 8.5 out of 10, some thought it was the best Sonic game, while others noted it was rather easy. Also, this panel member wrote one of the most negative 8 out of 10 reviews you will ever see. Some fair points, but their game must have been missing the time travel if they thought there wasn't enough originality. Tell me, did you agree with the points I've made? What rating would you give Sonic the Hedgehog CD for the Sega CD, initially released in 1993? If you forgot to like, time travel back to the past to fix that, and subscribe for a good future. As ever, thank you for watching, and please continue to be your own unique self. Sonic said it's time to get stoned.